welcome back to Case Studies. I'm here with my good friend, Pinny Gniwisch. And we're in module 3 of the executive program at Harvard, Owners, Presidents, Managers. And it really has been like a highlight of my life, like a real, like, beautiful part of my life. And I think one of the reasons it's so special is the relationships.
Agreed.
And specifically, the thing that fires me up is the diversity of thought, the diversity of religion, the diversity of business, and even geography.
Yes.
Kind of from all over the world. And Penny, you become such a special friend. But you have so many aspects to your life that aren't just business, and that's not where you started.
No.
Like, business wasn't the passion originally, was it?
No.
Okay, so we're at Harvard Business School, but I want to go back to the beginning. I want to go back to, for you and your family, like, well, where did you grow up, the environment, your parents? Let's go back to the beginning.
So let's start with my parents. My parents were both born in Europe before the war. And unfortunately, because of the Holocaust, they both lost many members of their family. They were, my father went to Siberia. My mother was hiding in the mountains. And eventually, they made it to Canada.
So talk about that. Where were they living? How did it develop?
So when Hitler came to power, he attacked Poland, and then he started rounding up the Jews. In the beginning, he was just placing them in pits and shooting them, but then later he created a factory for genocide. And luckily for my father, his parents were sent as a gift to Russia. Before Poland had a war with, before the Nazis fought with the Russians, they were partners in bed. So as a parting gift for conquering Poland, he sent 100,000 Jews to Siberia to work.
Wow.
So
I had no idea.
Yeah. So my father was on a train with other Jews, and most of them died.
This is your dad?
This is my dad.
Oh my gosh.
Most of them died. He was a baby. His mom died on the way. People were dying every day from, it was like 40, Siberia is not Utah. The weather's pretty cold over there. So, most of the people died of disease and just frostbite, but he survived. I'm not sure how, miraculously.
As a baby.
And he grew up, his first few years were in Siberia. And then he came back to Poland, and they saw that everything was destroyed. He had no.
This is post-war.
Post-war.
Okay.
No family members left. He had hundreds and hundreds of cousins. Not one survived the war. I remember I went back to Poland with a group of teenagers, and we went into Auschwitz, which was the #1 concentration camp, where they murdered 3.8 million people. And they have a book with all the names of the people, because the Nazis were very efficient. They kept documents of everything they did.
Yeah.
So they have a book there that has all the names. And I wanted to see, because my name is a unique last name. Not too many people have that name.
Yeah.
I haven't met anybody with that name. And the book had pages and pages of this last name. And the thing that really destroyed me was I looked at the book, the first name that came out was my name, Pinny Gniwisch, born in this town, murdered in this place in 1942. And like, you see yourself, your name,
like your real name.
The person I could have been named after.
Yeah.
In Judaism, we name after people who pass away as a respect. So it could be the person I'm named after. And so that's the legacy. That's the history. That's where the hunger for entrepreneurship comes from. You don't have a choice.
So there's been this unique fascination for me and my wife with the Holocaust. It's something that it's so surreal. It doesn't feel like that could exist anywhere. You know what I mean? Because it's so extreme and so I remember we were in New York one time and just had time to pass, and we went to a Holocaust museum, and it was so impactful. And I still remember the shoes, and just like almost like a wall of shoes. And another time we went to Prague, and we're walking around Prague, and there's the Jewish portion of Prague, the cemetery. And we took a tour, so we drove from Prague with a guide to Auschwitz. And we went and we did the Auschwitz tour.
It was Theresienstadt. It wasn't Auschwitz. Theresienstadt in Prague, near Prague.
No, we went to Poland.
Oh, you drove to
We
Poland?
drove to Poland
Oh my gosh.
with a guide.
Wow.
That was a
Okay.
Jewish guide that she didn't even know that she was Jewish until she was like 17. Her dad didn't tell anybody.
Lots of people.
And when she was young, he had a tattoo, and she found out that she was Jewish. And so her dad, he survived Auschwitz. And so we did this drive, and we went to Auschwitz, and it was so impactful, unforgettable. Just the efficiency of the killing, like it was. And so, it was something that it's always been something that we've just been drawn to for whatever reason. So to hear that, like, that is your legacy, it's like it's got to impact almost everything, every decision.
Everything you do, your future, your past, your present is, the stories are real, the stories are alive.
Yeah, so talk to me about, they went to Siberia, which is insane. I can't imagine Siberia like 1940.
Correct.
Then back to Poland, and Poland doesn't exist. It's just completely destroyed.
Completely destroyed. Finally, my dad gets a ticket to go to Israel, and he leaves his father on a boat by himself. He's 8 years old. And this story I just heard. And he was like alone again, and his mom had died. He's alone. He arrives in a DP camp in Israel, like a displaced prisoners camp in Israel, where the British put all the Jews who came. They didn't let them come to Israel. They put them in this camp. And every day, my dad would go to the guard, and he would go to all the camps, escape and under a fence, and go to the guards and tell them, did this person come, his father? And he would just say the name. And he would go every day, guard to guard to guard. And, this was week after week after week.
And he's how old?
He's, I think, 8, 9.
A child.
Every day asking, did this person come? Pinny Gniwisch, did he come? And the guy was like sick of this kid already. And one day, the guy sees the list, the guard. And when my dad comes, he's like, oh, yes, your dad arrived yesterday. So he reunites with his dad in Israel. And then eventually his story goes on that he comes to America. He meets my mom in Canada. My mom was in Canada already. And they marry, and they have a beautiful family, and they start a business. But interesting, the history follows me, right? I remember, I studied Jewish law to become a rabbi. That was my path. My path was I was going to graduate rabbinical school, and while I was in rabbinical school, I was sent to Australia to teach. And while I was there, part of my training was to sort of try to engage the community. So they said, you are an extrovert, you stand in the street and try to speak to people about Judaism. And I remember one week this older gentleman, beautiful white hair, wearing a vest with a chain with a gold watch.
Yeah.
And as he's walking towards me, he starts cursing at me. And I didn't say 2 words to him. And I'm like, what the heck? What did I do? And he's just shouting at me. And he's screaming like things like, the Holocaust happened because of people like you. And I didn't understand what was going on. I was like, so that night I came to my professor and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't take this abuse. So he gives me a tape. And this is where my entrepreneurship starts. He gives me a tape of Zig Ziglar. You heard of Ziggy?
Of course. Like, I've listened to everything that Zig's ever put together.
So
yeah.
I'm 17-year-old rabbinical student listening to Zig Ziglar. So Ziggy says like this. He says, when you go door to door selling vacuum cleaners, he says, you need to knock on as many doors as possible and create a number of how many people it takes you to get a sale.
Of course.
And then you
Closing
start
ratio.
Exactly. And then you start counting again.
Yeah.
Right? Closing ratio. So I do this the next day, right? Next day I'm in the street and I'm counting. Like 1 person says no, 2, 3. Number 10 says yes. I'm like so excited. So now number 20 is gonna say yes. So I'm going through the system. 13 says no, I'm excited. 15 says no, I'm ecstatic. 18 says no, I am super happy.
You know you're close.
I'm close. Now, who's number 19? This guy, this old Jew. What was his story? I wanted to know. So he grew up in Poland in an Orthodox family. He was really pious.
The guy that was successful.
This old person that was cursing at me.
Yeah.
He grew up in this town, and his father was the rabbi. And when the Nazis came into his town, they killed the leaders in front of the community to destroy them. So his dad was shot in front of him. So he sees this, he says, God, you don't exist. Then they sent him to Auschwitz, and he spent 4 years in Auschwitz. And then he was in Bergen-Belsen. And then he was in 5 concentration camps. So he leaves the war, destroyed human being, doesn't believe in humanity, and definitely doesn't believe in God. When he sees me, I represent God, right? I represent religion. Couldn't stand me. Not me.
What you represent.
What I represent.
Yeah.
So he's number 19. He comes close. I'm not scared anymore. He's number 19. He's my key to the next sale. I'm excited. And he's cursing at me. And I'm smiling. And I am ecstatic. And I'm like, I love you, man. And he's coming towards me and he's like, what's wrong with this kid? And he's coming closer and he's getting all riled up. And I'm like, you're the best. You make me so happy. And he's coming towards me and he's shouting. His face is red and I am excited. And as he gets close, I can't hold myself back. So I grab him and I hug him. And he melts. He melts in my hands and he starts to weep like a baby. And he becomes heavy. And I'm holding him like a baby. And everything went away. And he says, you know what? I'll pray with you for the first time in 60 years. And we sit and we say a prayer. And every week he came back and he said a prayer with me. And you know what? All it took
was love. Oh, what you had to have been young.
I was 17.
17 years old.
17 years old. Zig Ziglar, baby.
17 years old. That's crazy. Man, that's so beautiful.
And that's where I learned the power of framing.
Yeah.
Changed my life. Every time I get into a situation where I see it one way, how do I poke a hole, come at it from a different angle, reframe it? And every business decision, you need to approach that way. You need to approach it head on, but then you need to reframe it. And by reframing it, That's when you get the true picture.
The opportunity, yeah.
The 3D.
Yeah. So you're going to rabbinical school. You're on your path. You're in Australia.
Yep.
What took you off that path?
So I eventually get my degree. I become a rabbi, and I practice.
And talk to me about the time that it takes to be a rabbi.
So it's 7 years. So you go to rabbinic school for 7 years.
So it's like a doctorate. Like
Correct. It's a master's. A master's doctorate in Jewish studies.
And we went, you invited me to Yom
Kippur,
which I'd always heard of Yom Kippur, but I didn't fully know what it was. And so I think, like, let's go there in a second. But I went, and it was, you'll laugh at me, but it was the first time I didn't realize you were a rabbi.
Yes.
You've always just been Pinny. You know, you've been, my friend and somebody that's successful in business and beautiful family. And
I hope the information doesn't change anything.
if anything, it like endears me more to you. Like
Thank you.
The more I learn about your story and the more I pull back the layers of the onion, the more I appreciate, you. But I went to that, and it was the first time where I realized this community, like, this is everything to this community. And you come into the room, and everybody's there. And this is a small little town in Boston, and this is happening all over the world. And coming in and fasting and doing these prayers. And it was a really beautiful experience for me, meeting the rabbi's son, who was so charismatic. I was overly impressed with how he kind of came out of his way and connected with me, and didn't connect with me on like a weird, hyper religious evangelical way.
No.
It was on a human connection, person to person, and made me feel welcome. But then we kind of went through the prayers.
Correct.
And it was just this, it was this beautiful experience. But I'm referencing that, coming back to the scholars in this world. They're experts.
They're experts.
Like,
yeah.
you go deep, and that was what you did. You went deep.
7 years.
7 years, long time.
Long time.
So how do you go from 7 years of my life, this is what I'm gonna do, living in another country, to switching direction?
So I started out as a rabbi, and I started a nonprofit. I believe everybody needs to know what their gift is. We're all created to change the world in our own unique way. That's why birthdays are so important. We celebrate birthdays because without your birthday, the world would not be what it is today. So your presence in this world is there to make that difference based on your unique qualities. Finding your unique qualities is, I would say, 75% of the battle. 25% is implementation. But being honest with ourselves, knowing what we're not, and that's another business thing that we learned over the years, knowing what we're not is as important to knowing what we are. Because hubris, especially when you become the CEO or the boss,
blind spot.
Boom. It's the worst thing. I mean, we learned in that Ron Johnson thing, but the Target case. So I started a nonprofit to teach elementary school kids.
And you always felt that was your gift.
That was my
gift.
Connect with the youth. Exactly. So I did that for many, many years. I taught 40,000 children in over 15 years. And I did that for 15 years. And then the internet came. And it was 1999. And we were reading about Jeff Bezos starting a bookstore. So my brother calls me. He says, we're going to start a jewelry company online. Much better than books, higher ticket item, better margins. We're going to sell jewelry. And the next day, we gathered some money. We went to New York. We found a developer. And we started building this company.
Yeah.
And just then, all the VCs started coming. And they were like, this is the next great frontier.
Of course.
So we sent an email to a fellow by the name of Bill Gross. He was the founder and leader of a company called Idea Lab. And they were an incubator. So they incubated .coms. And we send him an email, and maybe 10 minutes later, he sends a response.
This is New York. This is San Francisco. Like, where's he?
He's in Pasadena, California.
Okay, and you guys are East Coast.
We're East Coast.
Still Canada or
Still
New York?
Canada.
Okay.
So he hears about us. Now, what we did to get people's attention, well, this was a little bit of a crazy Hail Mary. So our initial thesis was that people in 99 weren't going to put their credit cards on the web.
You didn't think they would?
We didn't think they would.
Yeah.
Right? We thought they wouldn't trust. This is not a medium they've ever given their credit card.
Yeah.
What am I doing? Where is it going? What's the cloud?
Yeah.
All that stuff. So we came up with a hypothesis that if we can get people's credit cards, for whatever reason, we can build a business. So we went to the manufacturer and we said, we would like a piece of jewelry that costs $1. And then we bought all the ads. We created, in those days, you can create something called a roadblock, where you can buy all the ads on all the networks. So there were 3 or 4 networks at that time. So for a period of 24 hours, we bought all the banner ads. And the banner ad read, free pearl necklace, $4.95 in small letters, shipping and handling. So the necklace cost us $1. The postage cost us $1.50. Different things, packaging, whatever. And we made about 70 cents on every pearl necklace. We launched the website. The website was like almost finished. We go live. The website goes live. The ads go live. And we don't hear anything. And every single order, we put a bell that it should ping in our office.
No bells.
We're waiting 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Suddenly a bell rings.
So excited.
We're like, oh my gosh, bing. And then we hear bing. And then for 24 hours, all we heard was beep. We sold 175,000.
Gosh, what a marketing coup.
Exactly, necklace in 24 hours. So now we had 175,000 credit cards, customers. They gave us because they didn't buy anything, they paid for shipping and handling. So in their minds, they didn't give their credit card. But we had a customer. So suddenly now, when we proposed this company to a VC,
you got 150,000 customers.
Boom. So immediately we got $5 million in one meeting.
Of course.
Like this. But there was a condition. The condition was that we needed to move to Pasadena to live in their incubation. Because this guy was a genius, like genius good and genius bad, right? So he went out, raised $1 billion cash from Hollywood people. This was when the internet was like,
as hot as it
hottest.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So he raises $1 billion. He starts acquiring companies. He acquires a makeup company. He acquires a home furnishing company. He acquires all these companies. He spends $800 million. And we moved to California. We were there for 1 year. In September 2000, the internet bubble busts. This fellow, Bill Gross, lost $800 million. Like that. So he calls us into the office and he says, we have to shut you down. And we're like, no, we like our business. We want to buy back our business. So he sells us back our business for $1. We go back to Canada with our tails between our legs with $250,000 in debt that we owed to Microsoft for advertising, to AOL. And we started over again.
But you've also kind of got to be going back saying that we're even in business is a big deal because everybody's dead.
Correct.
And no one's like got to be hard on their terms at this point.
No.
Like,
We went to them. We went to them and
if anybody's
said,
still kicking, they're like, yeah,
we went to them and said, listen, we can't pay you now, right? We're going to pay you this amount, but we're going to continue advertising with you, and we're going to do based on rev share. So we're not going to pay you CPMs.
Yeah.
And they accepted the terms because there was no one. Everybody was dead.
Yeah.
There was a magazine called The Red Herring. It was a digital magazine that spoke about VC funding and internet startups and all that. And every day they would send out an email.
Who went under?
Who went under? It was like the graveyard. And every day they would send, 5 companies, 7 companies, 10 companies, dead. So we came back, we regrouped, we raised another round, and
at this point, did you have a way better business?
yes,
Like,
yeah,
I
we
can only
understood.
imagine.
We understood the numbers now.
Yeah.
Better. We hired a guy who came
But
from.
you went into business at like 40 years old.
No, a little. I had another business prior to that, but it was an interesting business. I helped develop third world countries' mail systems. So I would work with the African governments in Western Africa, Gabon, Cote d'Ivoire, Benin, Togo, all these countries. I would go in there and look at their systems of delivery, and we would consult on helping them procure
But
equipment.
is this just like the culture?
Yeah.
Is like you are an entrepreneur. Like
No
doesn't matter,
choice.
Doesn't matter if you're the rabbi. You're still hustling.
My dinner table that's what it is.
Everybody
Everybody's
is talking about creating.
Creating. That's
Yeah.
what it is. You're creating, you're always creating, and you're always hustling because you have no choice. And that's the gift. That's the gift. My dad is 86,
Still hustling.
still comes in every day. He's like, how many new customers do we have?
He loves it.
He lights him up. And the greatest thing is he has curiosity. He's like, what are we doing about AI? This is an 86-year-old man. He's like, I saw this and I was reading this article. We have to get into AI. So it was really, and he rides me.
So you guys went and raised another round.
Raised another round, hired a guy from the Franklin Mint. I don't know if you heard of the Franklin
No.
Mint. They were like one of these mail catalogs
Okay.
that sold collectibles, not real collectibles, but created collectibles, and they did really, really well. So he was like a direct marketing guru. He took our mailing list and he really created, the automation, the flow, who opens, who clicks, what happens. He taught us how to analyze the data, and then we started to really, really crank it out. And we grew our business over the period of 15 years. We raised a third round, and we were humming around nicely at 70 million. And then we sold our business to a VC out of California. And and that was the end of ice.com and
That was it.
diamond.com.
That was it.
That was it.
And so that business was you
My brother,
and your brother.
2 brothers.
And
yeah.
who? So the family business, it was the 3 of you guys.
3 of us. My 2 brothers went off to become VCs. So
Okay.
they own their own VCs today, and they're partners. And I went to work.
And what is that exit? What does that look like? Like that pool of money that you get at the end? Like, is it confidential? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, it was 30 something.
It's enough that you
Enough.
can go be a VC.
Correct.
You have your own capital.
But I think it was more, I think the VC part was because of the success.
Yeah.
People give you money based on your last exit, right?
Yeah.
So they both raised money. They partnered with some really nice people. That world is not my world.
Yeah.
I'm a marketing guy. I'm all about, so I went to teach at university for 8 years, digital marketing at McGill. I did some stints at Johnson & Johnson. I taught them social media, digital marketing. So that was a lot of fun. And then I was poached by my dad. And he's like, we have a manufacturing distribution business in the jewelry business. We want you back. We want you to take over business development, marketing, and that's what I'm doing. So,
wow.
So
building out the family business, you and your dad.
Yeah. So now we have 50 something customers. We're doing really well. Our margins are good. We have great marketing. We're building, social media campaigns. We're doing social media automations. We're using AI to scrape data from the web, automatically create videos that are being uploaded automatically through these automations to Instagram and to TikTok, analyzing that data and then taking learnings out. So it's so exciting. I mean, we're in a really interesting time. And I just created a new B2C business called createdforever.com. It's all about our relationships to last forever. So we're selling you that ring, not to have you as a lifetime customer, but just that you should understand that love can be forever. Something that's lost on today's young people with so much divorce going on. That's a different discussion.
So one, that's like a beautiful story, and like improbable. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Correct. Like find yourself, hey, let's do an internet business, and kind of where that's taken you. Talk to me about some other elements of life. Talk to me about family. I know for you it's really important. I know in the Jewish community it's really important. Talk to me about kind of how family fits.
So family is the foundation of your life. If that is humming along, then you have a foundation to do anything. If you have a wife and children, and I have, thank God, grandchildren that are following in the same path, that give you the confidence and the clarity to build, you can do anything. Because now I have this force, right? I have all these people behind me rowing in the same direction, giving me the confidence to be who I need to be as an entrepreneur, and no fear. My nephews, I have a lot of nephews, and they're all entrepreneurs. They all have their own businesses, every single one of them. One sells dishes, one sells batteries.
It's just in the culture.
In the culture.
Yeah.
In the culture, but it all comes from family.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, right, you're always doubting yourself.
Yeah, those mentors and that strength.
So you need that. We call it in Jewish, it's called beitzim. In English, it's called cajones, right? You need that, right? If you don't have that, then where do you get it from?
Yeah.
You get it from foundation. I know every single Friday night, I'm with my family. We have a meal. We sit around. There's no electronics. There's no TV. There's no internet. 24 hours, no electronics. We sit around. We play games.
It's so beautiful.
We have a meal. We talk. We talk about the Bible. We talk about the week. This is what keeps me going, right? If I didn't have that island on Friday night, I don't know how anybody does it. How do you work constantly? When I come home, and my wife lights candles every Friday night. When she lights the candles on Friday night, everything stops. All the stress out of my body. Everything. Why? Can't do anything now. All I can do is focus on the Almighty and my family.
You just put it down.
Boom. And I would suggest this even if you're not.
Of course.
Just one.
No, I'm listening to it. It sounds like the greatest thing ever.
One day a week.
Yeah.
No business. Imagine you were fully present for your child one day a week. Yes, the rest of the week you're there too. But here, you're not like fidgeting, looking for your phone, because my phone doesn't exist. My business doesn't exist. Nothing. I go to synagogue, I pray Saturday morning. We have a good, we sit around after, we sing some songs, go home, another meal with the family, and island in time.
It's incredible. No, it's really beautiful. So how did you meet your wife?
So in our world, we have, believe it or not, if anybody have watched, any of your viewers have watched Fiddler on the Roof, so we have something called a matchmaker, right? Matchmaker.
In the community.
In the Jewish community, yeah. And in my case, it wasn't a matchmaker. It was a friend of my mother-in-law who met me through her son, who I was his counselor in camp. And she told my mother-in-law, oh, this great guy, he was my son's counselor. He seems like a, upstanding citizen. I think your daughter should go out with him. So she calls, my mother. My mother says, my parents talk about it. They present the girl to me on paper. She looks great. And then we go out and we see what the story is. And
you guys just hit it off?
The first girl I ever went out with is my wife of almost 30
That's
years.
Incredible. So so many of our classmates are Indian, and really predominantly in that culture is kind of the arranged marriages.
Correct.
And for me, that sounded like so scary. I'm like, the idea that someone else is going to decide who you go spend your life with. But how it was explained to me is it's not really that. It's more you've got people that care about you in the community that are vetting, that are,
correct,
checking to make sure that like this person, and they kind of a matchmaker type scenario where they, the families kind of bring that together. But they're more involved.
But in our world, you don't have to marry that person, right?
Yeah.
So my children have gone out with countless people until they found the one, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is that many of the issues that are problematic in marriages today is the foundational stuff. You don't talk about it, and then when you get married, suddenly, boom, it hits you in the face. But let's say if two people in the Mormon faith meet, right, the foundational stuff is solid, right?
Yeah.
You believe in God, you believe in family, all that stuff, right? So in our world, the foundational stuff is all there.
Yeah.
Right? We both, we're both Jewish, and we both follow the precepts of the Bible, and so the foundational stuff is all, the key stuff, the key ingredients are there. They're both accepted, right? Everybody does it. It's the personality now, right? It's because the beliefs are there. So now we just have to see, do we click?
Yeah. Can you are you compatible?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where the matchmaker comes in, right? You're passionate about this, and you like this, and they have resumes that they send. What hobbies do they like? What are important values to that person? And then they create, the matchmaking. You meet and you see, is there energy? Is there chemistry? Are we hitting it off? So once the foundational stuff is taken care of, then the other stuff is not that. I mean, it's important.
So literally, I could just go on and on. Talk to me about anti-Semitism and how that has played out in your life. For you, your dad was, lived through the war and lived through the Holocaust. For you, it's obviously always there. And I'll give you an example. So I posted a picture of me and you going to Yom Kippur, and just kind of gave a tribute to you as my friend, and the special holiday, and that I was honored to do it. And I received negative feedback, me personally, and it was fascinating to me because I'm Mormon, and I've been on a mission, and I've kind of experienced bias
Correct.
in my life, and it brushes off my back. It doesn't bother me. But talk to me about like how that's played out in your life, and like your philosophy on just how that fits in the world.
Wow, that's a big one. So when I was studying in Australia, I was on a trip with youth, 9-year-olds. We were walking in a place today, where Bondi Junction today, where there's protests about the river to the sea, destroying Israel, pushing all the Jews today. There's constantly in that place where I was walking almost 40 years ago. And as I'm walking, so I wear this kippah all the time, right? And the kids were walking, and these two bigger kids come over, and they grab this off one of the kids. So I'm, their protector. So I walk up to this 6'7" guy, and I grab it out of his hand. And I'm like, you don't know who you're messing with. I mean, I don't know where I got the balls to do that, and he got really upset. So I walked with the kids. We just kept on walking, and I'm holding all their packages. And he's cursing my mother. Never met my mother, but he's talking about my mother, and he's talking about my, he's saying all these nice things. And suddenly one of the kids says, he's right behind you. And I turn around before I can do anything. Bam! He sucker punches me, breaks my nose, breaks my glasses. I'm like gushing, and I am really upset. At that moment, I got this rage, because it was like my father, now me, and it was like, and I got this like strength, this like inner strength, and I just was like so angry, and I was like, bam! I put him on the floor. It's like bam, bam, and the cops came and had to pull me. I was just like, this is like 70 years of anger, and it turns out that the Australian government got involved, and it was a big deal, like an anti-Semitic thing 40 years ago in Australia. So that was like something that was personal.
Yeah.
Right. So that lives with me, it lives with me forever. That feeling of how someone can just do that because of something I'm wearing on my head. So forever, it's engraved inside of me, right? That there are people who don't want to take the time to educate themselves. Their whole history lesson is from someone on TikTok, right? And those are the people that are spewing all this hatred, right? Based on their feeling that they woke up somewhere. They woke. And now suddenly, every story is a David and Goliath story. Everything. First, it starts with Black Lives Matter. Then it goes to, transgender. Then it goes to the Palestinian conflict. Anytime there's someone who is more powerful in their minds, then it becomes the David and Goliath. And we always support the David. the underdog, no matter if there's a right or wrong. That doesn't matter.
You're just saying as humans.
As humans, yeah.
Yeah.
But society today.
Yeah.
Today, the world we live in is all about the underdog. It doesn't matter if the underdog is a terrorist, who attacked you. It doesn't matter if the underdog is, antagonized. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's anti-Semitism for me. The lack of education. It's the lack of knowledge. If people would take the time to learn about somebody else, when I worked for the Boy Scouts for 20 years as a chaplain. And I remember the Mormon pastor, the Mormon leader, so we were all chaplains, and the Catholic minister and the chaplain and the Protestant didn't want to sleep in the same tent as the Mormon. And I didn't know about Mormons. I'm from Canada. I didn't know. So who does the Mormon sleep with for 13 years? With the rabbi. So for me, it was an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
Right? And I was willing to, right? They weren't, but I was, right? I don't know if it's still that way, but that's what I saw.
Yeah.
Right? And then, right, in the Boy Scouts, I got to meet thousands. Like I used to go to the Jamboree every 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the Jamboree, I got to meet thousands of Mormons. And for me, it was so enlightening. And now they're my best friends.
Yeah.
Right? So the point is that can happen.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody out here, and they were talking about Utah. And they were talking about, the Mormon faith, the LDS faith, and they're like, yeah, you guys were so smart to, just get away from everything. And I was like, you don't know anything about, this faith. they're like, well, what are you talking about? I was like, it started in New York. And then, out of persecution, it went to Missouri and Illinois. And then, literally,
the farthest place.
No, it was a different country. This wasn't the United States. This was how far can we go to get away from this persecution? And they settled in Salt Lake City. That at that point was a different country.
There you go.
And it got annexed in. But that was, the roots of our faith was getting, building a home and building your sacred place, and then having somebody come in and take it to the ground.
Correct.
And having to go start over somewhere else. But I think about the entrepreneurial roots within my faith. And if you go to Utah, it is a entrepreneurial hotbed. But I think it's that industriousness that's just in your bones. It's having to get scrappy and having to get resourceful out of desperation, not out of inspiration. This is out of starting at a spot of I need to go sort this out, and it's just in the DNA. And it's for me, it's I love learning about other faiths and appreciating other faiths, because they give context to the decision making. And I think there's so many things that are just truly beautiful about your faith. And I also admire people that live what they believe. It's one thing to say that you believe something, that's something truly different to turn off your phone for a full day every Friday and to gather your family and to pray together. And that's very different than talking about it. And so, I admire kind of the life that you built and the legacy that you're leaving for your kids and your community. And you've impacted me, and really grateful to call you a friend and, to be able to spend time with you. I love you, brother.
Thank you.
So,
I love you too.
Thank you for coming.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. And I just want to end up with one little story that sort of encapsulates how we think. And my dad was sitting on a Passover, and Passover is when the whole family gets together. And he just there were tears. I was sitting next to him, and he was with children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and tears were coming down his face. And I say, is everything all right? He goes, no, this is joy tears. I go, what do you mean? He says, I came to America. Literally, I didn't have a shirt to call my own. I used to wear shirts with different inscriptions, different initials, because I worked to bury the dead, and the wives of the dead people would leave their husbands' shirts for poor people, and I wore them. And today, this is my profit. This is dividends. He says, if you'd have asked me 50 years ago that this is what I would have, I wouldn't even be able to dream. In my greatest dream, this wouldn't even come up. That's what we're talking about.
We had an experience the other day. We have there's this place close to Utah. It's called Lake Powell. And they built the Hoover Dam, and it created just this like incredible lake.
Yes, I was there.
And we have a houseboat, and it's like our, favorite place as a family. We'll go there during the summer, and we're on this houseboat, and I've got my friend Logan Dean, and he's, Stanford Business School guy, really exceptional entrepreneur, family guy. And we're sitting up on this houseboat, and same thing, you've got kids running around, you've got music playing, and, my wife is up like bossing the place. She's giving instructions to everybody and calling stuff out. And he just kind of pulls me aside, and he's like, if you would have, when you got married, if you would have dreamed that this could be your life, and same thing, just got emotional. And you just think, I couldn't have dreamed. Like I couldn't have, I couldn't have, my brain couldn't see past next Friday, and the idea that I could have a beautiful wife and beautiful kids and abundance, in my business and, friends, and to be able to experience this stuff. And I think that's the American dream.
It is.
It truly is. And I think perspective matters so much. And I think you talking about your grandparents and your name and your legacy and those things, and making sure that you always remember those things. I think when we forget, in our, scripture, they talk so much about remembering and constantly remembering. I think when we forget, we don't
lose our
have
way.
The appreciation. We don't have the gratitude. We don't have the urgency, and all those things. And so it's such a beautiful story. And you talk about those good tears.
Good tears.
And I think the older I get, the more of the good tears that I think I cried, because you just think about like the abundance that we experience, and that, the negative's always there, but so is the good. And I think, all of us, we kind of have that option on a daily basis, whether it's Zig Ziglar quotes of, finding the positive and setting the frame, or whether it's, just, in your prayers, just kind of noting the things that are the good stuff in life. All of us have that choice every day, and I think the choice that we make kind of determines the life that we live.
100%. 100%.
By choosing the good and choosing what to hold on to. Anyway, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
I've loved our conversation. Thanks for coming.